For this video, we are going to be discussing the slopes of parallel and perpendicular lines. So what does it mean for lines to be parallel and perpendicular? Well, parallel lines are lines that never intersect and have the same slope. That's a key thing to remember. So these two lines here are parallel, and they go on and on and on forever in both directions, and they never intersect. That's what parallel means. And if they never intersect, that means they also have the same slope. Perpendicular lines intersect at right angles and have slopes that are opposite reciprocals. All right, and hopefully you know that opposite reciprocals just means to flip and change the sign. So if you've got like A over B, the opposite reciprocal would be negative B over A. You just flip the fraction and change the sign. Now this should be a review of algebra for you. You should have already seen this, but we're going to be doing some geometry problems involving this. So let's take a look at one of those. So example 1 says, find the slope of lines that are parallel and perpendicular to AB if A is 3, 7 and B is 17, 3. So the first thing we need to do is find the slope of AB. So to do that, we take our coordinates, we plug them into the slope formula. We find our change in y, 3 minus 7. Find our change in x, 17 minus 3. We get negative 4 over 14, which reduces to negative 2 over 7. Now a slope of a line that is parallel to that, well, has just the exact same slope, so there we go. Slope of a line perpendicular is the negative reciprocal, so we flip our 2 and our 7, and since it was already negative, it becomes positive. So a parallel line will have a slope of negative 2/7, and a perpendicular line will have a slope of 7/2. No big deal. So let's see some sort of harder problems. Example 2 says, given f, this is the perpendicular side, so f perpendicular, fg perpendicular to jk, with fg and j having these coordinates, and k having the coordinates 30y, find a possible value for y. So how are we going to figure out what y is? Well, all we really have to work with is the slope formula and the information we see here. We can't find the slope of jk because we don't know what y is, but we can find the slope of fg. And then we can use that to figure out the slope of jk. So let's find the slope of fg first by plugging our numbers into the slope formula. 18 minus 7 over 12 minus 4, which gives us 11 over 8. So that's the slope of fg. Now since our lines are perpendicular, we know that jk is going to have a slope that is a negative reciprocal, which, that shouldn't say negative 7. That should say, whoa, negative 8. All right. So we know our slope's going to be a negative reciprocal. So we flip our fraction, and we're going to make this top one negative. We're just going to make the whole fraction negative. And now we're going to solve. So one thing I could do is I could cross multiply and do all sorts of stuff, but I'm going to do this a slightly easier way. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do 30 minus 8, which gives me 22. And then I'm going to think, well, if this is 22 and this is 11, all I need to do to this whole fraction is multiply it by 2, or 2 over 2, and that gives me negative 16 over 22. That doesn't change this side of my equation, it just changes the way I write it. Well, now if I have 22, both on the bottom and the top, I can just ignore that. All right, so all I did is change this fraction by multiplying top and bottom by 2. Now I can ignore the bottom of the fraction and just say, oh, well, y minus 6 equals negative 16. Add 6 to both sides, and I get y equals 10. So I found the slope of the line I knew. I used the fact that they're perpendicular and plugged my known information into the line that I didn't know the slope of, and I solved for my missing value. Let's take a look at example 3. It says, given AB parallel to CD, that's the parallel symbol, with A at 1,6, B at 8,20, and C at 3,5, find one other point on CD. And there are multiple answers to this problem, but I'm just going to give you one of them. So, well, if we don't even know what D is, there's no way of us finding the slope of CD. But we know that the slope of CD is going to be the same as the slope of AB because AB and CD are parallel. So let's find the slope of AB. Plugging our numbers in. 20 minus 6 is 14. 8 minus 1, 7. 14 over 7 is 2. And I'm going to leave it as 2 minus 1, and I'll show you why here in just a second. All right, so now that we know this, let's plug in. Oh, for some reason I didn't put the equal sign. If we say that point D is just at the point X, Y, we need to figure out what both X and Y are. So we could do that using the slope formula. We could say, well, Y minus 5 over X minus 3 equals 2 over 1. All right, all we're trying to do is find an X and a Y that'll make this true. Well, if that's the case, then I just have two equations to solve. Y minus 5 equals 2, and X minus 3 equals 1. Well, those are easy equations to solve. Add 5 on this side, add 3 on this side, and I get Y is 7, and X is 4. So my missing point is simply the point D, that's a D, is at 4, 7. That's all we did. Plugged in the information we knew to find the slope, plugged in what we didn't know into the slope formula, and solved to find our missing point. So now you need to know everything you need to know to solve our try it problem, which says, if G is 7, 3, and H is 4, 5, and J is 18, 7, find the coordinates of K that will make GH perpendicular to JK.